guys. We're not live.
We are live now, yes.
We are live.
Just
Don't
now.
swear.
Just
Cheers,
now.
guys.
Live on Channel 4, do not
not.
swear.
Yeah.
Put this down.
What's going
Don't
on,
say
you
fucking
lots? Back. I say back once again. There's now 4 of us. For the first time
Full house.
in ages. This is proper Avengers Assemble. It's the crossover that nobody asked for.
Did we have Avengers Civil War? What happened? Did we all fall out?
So yeah, I think Jake went really green. Smashed up half of London.
Yeah.
Just what? Just his
Dan broke my
underpants.
shield.
Only his underpants stayed the right size.
Exactly. I actually split a shirt the other week picking up a little practice amp.
Yeah.
But it's more the case of like I haven't bought new shirts in like
It's all that IPA you
15
drink.
years. Just bend down, it was like at the back. I was like, God damn.
Like, wasn't the moobs trying to break free?
No. My moobs will
That's
break free.
Incredible Hulk.
God, we're a
Well,
minute
yeah,
in
it's
and we've
good to
already
be
said
back,
moobs.
everyone. Yeah.
Sorry, I'll keep myself. It's fine.
No, it's excellent. It's I think it's been a long time, and it's much welcome back, audience. Welcome back, Tom. Welcome back, Jake.
Thank
Welcome
you.
back, all of us.
Bless us.
So we've got plenty to catch up on, really. There's some interesting guitar stories, guitar news, and yeah, we can obviously just catch up, drink some beer, say hello to you all. If you've got any questions in the chat, we're doing this live now, obviously, if you're watching this, and anyone that's not actually live and is on the podcast feed, there's no way, we're not committing to any kind of set schedule, so can't when to join in, but if you follow on social media, and follow the Guitar Podcast on Instagram, then we'll obviously post when we are going live, and you can come in and hang out and yeah, ask us questions, etc. So I guess as you've been away the longest, Thomas, catch us up. How's things? How's life? What are you up to?
Busy. Yeah, I've been on tour with Martin Miller for a long time. We started in June. We released, it's over there so you can't see it, but released these new pedals for Laney, actually amps, the loud pedal amps. They've been wildly successful, which is great. And so we've been touring with those, doing clinics in various parts of the world. Did the Guitar Summit and then got back about a week ago, something like that. And have just been kind of relaxing. Well, not just relaxing, but mostly relaxing for the last couple of days. And then after the next couple of weeks, I'm off to South America for 12, 13 days, something like that as well. So that's going to be amazing. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Martin and I
as well?
Yeah, that's Martin as well. So we've been doing tons and tons of gigs. And yeah, it's been awesome. They're really interesting. I've probably talked about this on the podcast before, but they're cool because they're not like your normal guitar clinics. They're actually gigs where we almost exclusively play. We do a little bit of talking, there's no backing tracks. It's just us playing. So anybody who's been out to one of those gigs, thank you for coming out. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Not much to say other than that, really. It's just been good fun.
What's the inside scoop on Martin's guitar? He lost it and got it back. I mean, that's the sort of.
Well, he seemed to do the old like celebrity call to arms, which was amazing. So like I've never seen so many hashtags for an airline before in a single post. It was amazing. It was almost, you remember the song United Destroys Guitars or whatever it was? It was almost one of those moments. I said to him he should write a song actually for Iberia Express, like Iberia Express loses guitars. But yeah, it was great because it got lost for the last bit of the tour. And the cool thing, this is where signature guitars come in really, really useful because I've had a guitar lost as well. So when I went to Italy last year, I turned up, my guitar and my luggage got lost. So I had no clothes, no guitar. And somebody thankfully had turned up with an Ibanez TQM1. So I just used that for the whole thing, which was pretty cool. And the same thing happened to Martin. So we had an MMN, I can't say it, MMN1 for him that was there for the shows.
I'm assuming the guy was in standard tuning and you screwed him up.
Yeah, I had to retune his guitar and slightly set it up. But yeah, it was good fun. But weirdly, we arrived at one place and Martin borrowed an MMN1. And this thing was being put into an electric guitar museum in Barcelona, I think it was, or Madrid, somewhere like that. I think possibly Barcelona. So Martin now exists in a museum. I don't think there's a waxwork of him, but which would be amazing. But his guitar is
Museum
in a
grade.
museum. It's a museum piece, museum grade MMN1. Yeah, crazy.
Nice.
So you is this like you've done like one leg now, and then you're doing another leg of a tour?
No, we've done two legs effectively. We've done
Right.
Europe, although we've not finished doing Europe, and we've done the UK. Because I know you, Dan, were asking when are we doing the UK. So unfortunately, you missed it.
missed
We
it.
did the UK, and then we've done Germany and Germany and Spain, Belgium. We did as well. We're going to go back to France at some point, and then we've got South America, and at some point we'll be in Southeast Asia as well. But that's probably going to be next year. So it's a world tour. So we're doing various parts of the world, and I was in the USA in July as well. So I did a bunch of stuff in the USA for Sweetwater and AMS. Yeah, bunch of different Zounds as well, bunch of different people doing video content because I can't play over there, unfortunately. And then I did Woodshed, which was amazing, which BB unfortunately couldn't attend. Woodshed with Andy Wood, which was absolutely insane. Like sharing a stage with Steve Morse, Brent Mason again, Ariel Posen. Who else was there?
Rub it in, mate. Rub it in.
Yeah, I know. It was absolutely extraordinary jamming with those guys on stage. Playing the chicken with Brent Mason. Ruled.
Amazing.
So
yeah, it was
cool.
very cool.
Yes, what was I going to say about something that
I have a
is it,
question
and this
about
is
the tour.
yeah, I was going to say the tour stuff. Yeah, is it all for the pedal, or is it some Ibanez stuff with the guitars, or are they all Laney pedal ones?
We
Or
did
is there some
one
treatment?
Ibanez clinic the other day, which was there's a great store in Belgium called Fast Forward, and they wanted Martin and I for an Ibanez clinic. So we did one Ibanez clinic. The rest has all been Laney for these pedals. South America's going to be the same. But yeah, occasionally, I mean, we do talk about the guitars sometimes as well because people are interested in those, and we tend to sign a few as well. But it's mostly about the pedals, the amps.
Mhm.
As far as the
Nice.
playing goes, is it so? There's a few little videos and things online of you guys doing little duo things. Is it a full kind of worked out set with that, or is there some sort of wild cards that you chuck in, like any standards and stuff, or is it all quite slick and arranged at this point? I mean, I say arranged in that there are open solos and stuff, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, we don't play any jazz at all.
Oh,
It's
we don't
all
do that here.
Well, I haven't played a jazz gig for such a long time that, you know, and Martin feels the same way. We don't really qualify or call ourselves jazz musicians anymore. Although the last jazz gig I did was with the young man with the headphones on, which was truly awesome. The trio stuff that we did with Ant was amazing. They were really, really good. But that for me with Martin, it's not really our thing. So we take pop songs and we reharmonize them and do arrangements of them. So the last one we did was Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. And that's been a bit of a hit, like on the tour. People love it. But the cool thing about it is, like the last one that we did was for a bunch of non-guitar players. They were musicians, but they weren't guitar players. And because they know the songs, they get super into it. So we get really good audiences. And if you're doing a clinic, we can tailor the clinic to the audience. So if the audience is not guitar players, we, you know, if it's a bunch of musicians like this, I think 15th or 25th anniversary of this store, we can just literally play the material because it's songs they know, but they're improvisation vehicles. And some of them are harmonically quite complex. There's quite a lot you can do on them. The only standard that we do is How Insensitive. And it's not, we don't play it like the original at all. We play the melody and then it goes into this insane 15-minute jam that's never the same twice.
Oh, nice.
So there's little kind of sections, little flag posts that we have to hit along the way. But other than that, it can go for 15, 20 minutes, you know, if we need it to, which is quite cool.
How do you feel? Do you feel like proper match fit now from playing that much?
So the last gig that we did, or the last few gigs in Spain and Belgium, you know when you get to that point where the thinking part of your brain doesn't have to engage at all and you can just play.
Flow state.
Yep, you can just play.
Absolute Neo.
Yeah, we're going to go on.
Sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, without wishing to jinx anything, do you feel like they're kind of working well and everything, like health-wise and kind of like technically and thing, as well as like the kind of creative aspect of it? Or do you feel like that's in sync at the moment?
I've still got ulnar nerve compression, so my little and third finger don't work anywhere near as well as they used to, but I've got used to it now, so it just is what it is. And I don't worry too much about the technical side of it. We don't actually play many things that are insanely technical. We've got a couple of runs that are orchestrated that we play. There's one at the end of like the Billie Jean is very technical, and there's a whole outro section which is very, very hard to play, and it has to be perfectly in sync. But if it comes together perfectly, it's great. If it doesn't, it's still like you listen back to the videos where it's not 100% perfect and it's still got a vibe to it that's really cool, so it's fine. I don't really worry about that stuff so much anymore. And actually that's been quite nice because like when I play over Isn't She Lovely now, I'm not worried about hitting like certain technical goals. I'm just kind of playing kind of singable and interesting melodies. And then if some of the technical stuff comes out, that's a bonus. I'm not too worried about it. Because the audiences don't seem to care. As long as they get one or two insane legato licks in the entire set, they're fine. So
Give them the hits.
So as long as you
Yeah,
just pull one
exactly,
out of the
yeah.
bag, then you
Yeah.
then you
yeah, honestly,
you
yes.
should you should do the kind of the aging rocker thing where you just save it to the very last. It's the encore sort of thing. So
Well, the thing is, this gig shows you like the power of dynamics in music because it's more like it's in some ways it's more like chamber music because the level of dynamics is insane with this gig. So we need a quiet audience. So we've done a couple where we've had people talking in the background and it completely ruins the vibe, totally ruins the vibe. Whereas like the last one we did in Belgium, we had a completely silent audience. And when they're silent, you know that they're really going on that sort of dynamic ride with you. And it literally goes from whisper quiet. So when we start, we play Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, and it's got lots of dynamics in it. Like when we come into the melody, we drop the dynamics way, way, way down. But then when we start Isn't She Lovely, which is the second song, you can almost hardly hear Martin when he does the intro on purpose. And the sound goes from having lots of delay and reverb to being completely dry. So we're taking people on this kind of dynamic journey. And we've both got much more dynamic pickups in our guitars now. So I've got really low output pickups and he's got lower than the original Hyperion pickups in his guitar. So we can really ride that wave. And we're not using in the gig, like I basically use channel 1 on the Dual Fusion and the gain is on about like probably 11 o'clock for the whole gig. There's not a lot it's not clean. Very rarely do we use a clean sound, only on How Insensitive. But for the main like thrust of the gig, it's all just crunchy edge of breakup tones. And if you dig in, it gets crunchy. We're not using there's only 1 or 2 points where we use lead guitar tones. So you can really kind of ramp up and ramp down those dynamics, which makes it a more fun gig. So the audience are really like on the edge of like, as opposed to playing with backing tracks where you've got like full on overdrive all the time and the dynamic is very kind of uniform. So it's an interesting one. It's much more fun than any of the other clinics I've ever done before. It's great.
Yeah, I guess you think of a usual clinic setup as if anyone's been to one of these things, a lot of the time it's usually one guy with backing tracks.
Yep.
And it's all very kind of on rails because it's the backing tracks. And your tones are probably set. Do you know what I mean? Especially if you're playing like one of your own tunes and you're just trying to just emulate what you did on the recording. But I guess as far as your musical, I don't want to say well-being, but like talking about being match fit, you could do 2 months of solo clinics with a backing track and you'd probably be okay. But I think doing this kind of stint with just another guitar player, like we've talked about this before, but the sort of duo guitar thing is like quite a compound exercise because you've got the comping aspect, you've got the interaction, you've got all this stuff. It's like so many food groups playing wise are being touched upon rather than like, oh, press play, I'm going to do my thing, and then it fades out or whatever, which is still fine, but in terms of a an expressive musical thing, it must be like so good, especially with someone like Martin as well. And you guys know each other quite well as well, so it's not. There's a lot of interaction to be had.
Yeah, I mean we've been playing together since like 12, 13 years or something.
Yeah.
So it's not we know each other's playing really well. And the cool thing about playing with Martin as well is that our technical approaches are the polar opposite of one another, but we come from the same world. And we can rely on each other's time feel as well, So there's no point where we're like, okay, where the hell is the, where's one or where's the beat or whatever. It just works. We don't take too many risks because it's not that kind of a gig, but we do within the realms of, so the forms are always the same, apart from how insensitive. But I guess where we take risks is again dynamically, and within our sort of solos, where it's a proper improvised solo set, so it's head solos, heads, but with some heavily arranged parts in there. So like the most complicated one we play is Rosanna,
Nice.
and it's a very complicated arrangement, and it's very hard to play, but it takes the listeners on this journey where, like I'd say 75, no, less than that, say 60% of the time, they know exactly what they're getting because it is Rosanna. And then the rest of the time, 40% of the time, whatever, they are hearing us kind of add our own elements into those songs and then take them on an improvisational journey as well. So it's a really, really fun, it's a gig. It's not a clinic, it's a gig, We have actually done, as opposed to clinics, we've done gigs with those sets. And when we get to South America, I think we'll be doing gigs as opposed to clinics, and just kind of the pedals and stuff will be on stage and the banners will be behind us, but they're in venues, not in shops, Well, that was the
Nice.
same in some of the gigs we've done in Europe as well. But yeah, the crowd seem to like it. I mean, we played Guitar Summit and huge audience, and people were absolutely loving it. They get really into it, so it's a really, really nice gig to have. It's good.
Yeah, man. And it's quite a nice change as well because, like I say, there's lots of solo guys who are backing tracks, and again, that is fine. But it's kind of nice to see an element of potential danger. I know there isn't from your side of things, but like it's like you go and watch a fucking illusionist, escape artist, and you're like, oh shit, what's it gonna do? But if you've got two people just sat there, you're like, oh, it's so much more. It's a different watch, isn't it? You know what I mean? You're like, oh, what can happen?
Yeah, it's more real. It's a more
Yeah.
musical experience. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah, the dynamic thing's interesting. I never really thought about that with regards to the difference between doing a clinic, a backing track clinic, or just either playing solo or with a duo or a band. Because I think that really is the defining or limiting characteristic of it. Because it's it's just so much more sort of intimate, or it's like personal when it's actual like just it's the only thing that's creating it.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how much dynamic range there is in the electric guitar when you are plugged into the right kind of amp and have the right kind of sound. Because obviously, if you have lots and lots of overdrive and very high output pickups, you get this very compressed sound, which is useful for a certain thing. But we're playing quite loud, and we've got very dynamic amplifiers that really respond well to these low output pickups. So we can really play with that dynamic range. And that's probably the most fun thing about the gig, because harmonically nothing that we're doing is mega. It's not simple, but it's not mega complicated. So you don't have to engage your brain too much. It's not like playing, like 26-2 or Giant Steps or anything. There's none of that happening. The most complicated song is probably How Insensitive or Isn't She Lovely harmonically. But so then you're concentrating more on the musical elements of it that make it into an experience for the listeners. And so people respond to it. You get a very different round of applause doing that kind of clinic or gig than you do doing like a Tom Quayle guitar show clinic with backing tracks playing, loud fusion music. It's a very different kind of round of applause. People are at those shows for the crazy legato licks over chord changes. It's a very guitaristic thing, but this translates through as a musical experience that could be appreciated by literally anybody off the street could appreciate this, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, like
nice
gear
feeling.
aside, it's something that you could just go and sell to whatever venue anywhere.
Yeah.
And just be like, oh,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The dynamics thing is interesting actually because I did this little guitar duo. Technically, it was a trio, but there was like 4 of us, but people got up and down. But not playing with drums was so nice. It sounds like I'm not insulting drummers here, but like the main like swing gig is like you only get one time round of the solos, and the energy is pretty much full pelt. Not full pelt, but it's just there all the time because it's a lot of the time it's for like dancers or whatever. So not having any drums, and it was just like, oh man, it's so nice. I can just like play down if I want. I can like I've got so much more range because when you got bass and drums and everything else in, it's like anything lower than here, you're not really gonna hear it, which means your dynamic range is like that, without kicking on loads of pedals just to for volume, and that's different. I feel like volume is different to dynamics. I know that sounds it sounds like the same thing, but the difference between just being loud to be heard, like, oh, it's a solo now, I'm going to kick this on, and actually playing dynamically.
Yeah.
So it was so nice to be able to just have all this space and to be able to like pull things around and go up and down. It's like, oh.
That's the thing. So our lower dynamic floor is way lower than you would have on a normal gig with a drummer.
Yeah,
but also
lost
when you play electric guitars with single coils through edge of breakup amplifiers, that distortion thing going from clean when you pick lightly to quite reasonably overdriven when you pick hard not only gives you dynamic range but tonal range that you don't have if you're playing jazz stuff as well, or if you're playing with a drummer, unless you're playing with a very sympathetic drummer who's going to go down, who's going to use brushes or something, or is going to play very lightly on the kit. You still do have dynamic range, but you've got insane levels of dynamic range with this setup, which is kind of cool. So you find yourself improvising in a different way, a completely different way. And you find yourself listening in a different way as well. And if you've got somebody like Martin who's responsive to stuff like that, it's a really, really nice feeling. And we don't always get it right. Sometimes, like, you listen back to it and some of the comping is too loud or whatever. It doesn't always go the way you want it to. But when it's going right, it's a real crazy experience.
I have a question about that, actually. Like, some of the arrangement elements and some of the way in which you need to technically deliver a part does limit the dynamic range of that thing. So if someone's trying to go somewhere with it, but actually you all of a sudden, because of the dynamic level you have to play it, the part breaks down. You know what I mean? There is actually, it's a bit of a it's all very delicate, this, really. Like, with people forget how sort of fragile some of this stuff is, but I think that fragility is part of the interest in it.
Yeah, it's interesting how the dynamic range corresponds to the density of what you play as well. So sometimes if you're playing very, very lightly, you might go down to comping with just single notes, like, really, as opposed to playing chordal structures and, polyphonically, you might go down to just playing a very light bass line or even a supporting melody line that's going through the harmony, just to complement what's happening dynamically, not even necessarily complement, like, trying to be sophisticated. Because when you listen to, let's say if you listen to Jonathan Kreisberg and Nelson Veras play, they have this crazy interplay, which is very, very complicated. But it's not always for dynamic range purposes. It's often because the level of complexity that they're going for, they want this kind of fugue-like interaction between the parts. And those guys are so crazy they can do it with single notes or two notes or however polyphonically dense they want to get. But dynamic range-wise, when you're playing with overdrive, sometimes it's much more beneficial to drop down to single notes just for dynamic range purposes. Because if you're playing more than one note, the movement that your hand has to make is bigger, therefore you've got more energy, and that the number of notes that you've got, you're creating a different tonal quality by those notes interacting.
What I was saying, like, if you had like a part in your head that was the part,
Yeah,
and you're going for it, like, let's say you've got a chord that's not spread and it's like 5 strings or more. That's like, instantly you're outside of it being possible, apart from finger picking, to do it like dynamically. So you almost there's almost like it's more like a aperture like thing where you kind of like crushing it in, like, but like, it's not simply just playing at a lower volume. It's changing the way in which you are delivering musical material in so many different ways. Like, those adjustments are, as you were saying earlier, Dan, as well. Those adjustments are tonal, and they are in terms of density, and sometimes even time. Like, it's very, like, it's almost like you want to almost take the front off the note a little bit more. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be like there. It's hard to explain until like you're doing it, but
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing. Sometimes you make choices where you make a note late on purpose. Sometimes you'll make one note stand out really loudly. And again, with this, you've got the option to do that, which is quite nice. You can literally go through a line and make a single note pop out really loudly to have a particular effect. There's like on Isn't She Lovely? There's a really cool, like on the F sharp 7 chord, that sharp 4, the sharp 11, that sounds really, really like to a non musician or non jazz audience sounds quite out there. You can really highlight that note dynamically and make everybody's ear turn. And then, which again, you don't necessarily get the option to do playing with a loud fusion band or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, I'm hammering the point home here, but it's a different kind of gig. Basically, it's really, really nice to do. It's fun.
I've got
Sad I
a
missed
gear
it.
question. What are you playing through? Like, because obviously the pedals. So then, how are the pedals being heard?
Well, then they are pedals, but they're amplifiers. They're proper amplifiers, 60-watt amplifiers. So we're
So what
plugging
are you
them into
going into?
passive.
Yeah, but
We're plugging them into passive
okay,
cabs
but
on stage. So I'm using the LA 212, which is the 2x12 cab that's meant to go with the LA series, which is their Laney only make one expensive cab, and it's that one. And that's the one I'm playing through, and it sounds amazing. It's an oversized 2x12. Martin's playing through an Ironheart cab, and then we take the XLRs out and we run them through to front of house. And those two sounds together create this enormous kind of wall of sound kind of vibe, which is quite nice. But
right,
we
okay.
we want to monitor with cabs on stage every single time. I'm not a fan of monitoring through wedges if possible. Or in ears. We don't use in ears, no way. It's not a big enough gig for it. We just need cabs on stage and that's it. And these things are insanely loud. Like if you put them on 3 out of 10, you're louder than most drummers. So they're not, it's a proper 60 watt. It's as loud as the Silver Jubilee that's sat to my right. It's insane.
wow,
So then they're not quiet things.
I get one. I
You do, Jake?
thought of a I thought of a
Jake,
really.
you're very quiet. I'm not sure if you
Am I?
can you come in a bit to the
Yeah. Do you know
yeah.
what? As I was working on the thing, let me just sort that out, guys. Let me just go back to this. Does that work better?
Oh,
I
there we
think so.
go.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So when we were toggling everything, I turned off my my preamp.
Oh,
Oh well, I didn't say anything interesting. Um,
You're here now. That's what matters.
yeah, no, I thought of. I've got a few ideas about how that would be an even smaller thing for like versus a quad cortex, let's say. Um, yeah, fun in the sun.
Mm. Um, so Jake, tell us what you've been up to. You've had interesting gig. Can you actually talk about now or report
Oh
on?
yeah, I
Or
can talk
you
about it
can't.
fully. No, absolutely can. The only reason I didn't want to talk about it is just in case. Um, Sometimes these things, it's like it's only happening when it's happening because there are a lot of moving parts. There are people you haven't worked with before. There are no contracts. Things can get very dynamic in this world. So it's just like you learn from experience. I've been booked on shows before that have been very exciting that I've told close friends, and then it's just not happened. Um, so I just you don't air this stuff publicly unless it's sort of actually 100% going ahead. Um, so I was playing a 2-week residency with a chap called Titus Burgess. And Titus, some people may know him from his role in Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Have any of you guys seen that?
no.
So
No.
it's very funny. He's also he's quite an interesting guy. He's done a load of Broadway stuff, but he's also written musicals. He's been in films, and he's a very sort of all round creative guy. His degree was in music as well, so he's not only a phenomenal singer, and when I mean phenomenal, he's ridiculous. But he's also a great musician, and so it's like it was a bit. You never know what to expect when you go into these things, but it was such a unicorn of a gig because he was like, "Oh yeah, you sound good. You should be like doing the thing that you're good at, like doing the you do. I'm gonna give you some more chance to shred on this gig because that'll make the show better." I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" So yeah, so that was really fun. But the thing was, it was like, okay, we've got a set list through, and on day one we're going through, it, and Titus is like, yeah, we're not gonna do any of that. So I was a little bit. I'll be honest, I was a little bit like concerned. This is not how these things are done. But we just got through a load of new charts, and that basically was it for the rest of the run. We were just having to like find different. We were just doing different songs every day that maybe some of them we'd never done in different arrangements, different little hits.
So you're just reading them.
Often getting charts through like 10 minutes before we go on stage, and we've just got to read them with a guest. But the thing is, here's the thing. Now that might sound like a complete nightmare, but it wasn't, because of the way. So first of all, there was no like expectation that it was going to be perfectly rendered. Right? It was so much the fact that the people involved knew what they were asking us to do, and it was just our job to do as well as we could. And we ended up doing so many different things with like there was a thing that I'll tell you this though, that day one we do the show goes really well, everyone's really happy. You know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm a supplier and my client is happy, really happy, everyone's getting on. So we do the show and we hang out at the club, which is the Phoenix Arts Club, which is like a kind of theater members club. So you get a membership by working in the West End, or you can like pay for entry, and it's one of the places that are open like late night. And we ended up staying there and hanging out, and the PA and the piano and everything, the mics were just left open, and the sound engineer it works at the club, so he was just sort of there. And Titus is hanging around, and people are just getting up and singing songs and saying, "Hey, do you know this song?" Like, and then the people are like finding it online, or they might have it in their Dropbox, and they're playing songs from musicals, and it's like amazing. And Titus is going to some of these people, "What are you doing on Wednesday? Do you want to come and do my show?"
What?
Like, yeah, can you come and sing in my show? Come and just come and do a tune.
This sounds bizarre.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was bizarre, but it was like excellent for how bizarre it was.
Good fun.
Yeah, really, like amazing fun. And then Titus was like, "Why didn't you tell me? Dan just told me you've got an album out. Why didn't you tell me?" He's like, "We'll do your song tomorrow."
Hmm.
And so I'm like, oh, "Okay." And then he's the MD Dan Garman, who's an absolute beast. He got a chart together for If You Run, and we ended up playing that twice on Friday, which was the first time it's ever been played live with a band, which was great fun. And
Did you get it filmed?
yeah, maybe, but then part of me is like, it was all fine. There was no like. In fact, maybe I should get the film, because it wasn't like I made any mistakes or played anything super badly or anything. But we actually found that we needed to push the tempo like 2 BPM, live vibe. And so some of the things that I'd done like became virtually unplayable, and so I was like, so I just sort of, I kind of adapted it a little bit. But yeah, hopefully there's some footage. But yeah, it was just amazing to be involved with something where it was like there was an element of chaos, but because it was like, okay, we're all trusting, no one's trying to pull anyone's pants down. You're going to, we're gonna help each other out here. Like surprisingly, by the end of the 2 weeks, it's like, yeah, give us anything. Like I sent you guys like one of the more complicated things we got shown, this like Jason Robert Brown, who's quite notorious for complicated music. And it was like, oh yeah, there's a drummer from New York. He's going to jump up and play drums for this song, and then we just need to find someone to do the. Oh, okay, we got someone to do. So all of a sudden, we're playing this like really horrible technical piece of music with, the audience there, and it's the first time we're doing it, and it's like grim.
Does he explain this to the audience then, that this is like what's going on?
Yes, yeah. So what's quite interesting is that there is an auto cue at the front of the stage, and basically he'll like call a song and be just like, I'm doing this song now, and then someone the MD's like assistant in Montreal or Canada somewhere was controlling the auto cue remotely while streaming the show.
What?
Yep. And so like if Titus called a song, it would be like, and Dan would the MD would have like a shout mic, and we were on in ears, and he'd be like, so do you guys know this song? It's like, no. He's like, okay, I'm going to send you the charts in the break.
What?
Yeah.
To call up to fucking Houston.
Yeah.
Houston.
It sounds like the kind of gig that would give you nightmares.
But it isn't. It wasn't. It almost was, if it wasn't for the fact that there was a level of like, oh man, like there's a couple of bars here that's like a really tricky thing. I'm just going to leave it. It wasn't like I'm just being judged for it. You're just trying to be like, the amazing thing was I was using like every single musical muscle that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty rewarding.
And if there's no expectation of it being like right, then in some ways that kind of eases the pressure in terms of, and then you can enjoy that kind of scenario. I do know what you mean.
But remarkably, there were obviously a lot of things that were right, and the thing with it was that it wasn't like there wasn't pressure, but it was just like there was enough firepower on stage to get through it with something good. Like it was proper like teamwork style, like it was just fun. It was proper ensemble playing, listening, kind of responding, monster players. Great.
It's really interesting though, because like I've been in rehearsals before where like I remember playing with Adam Nitti years ago, and we were rehearsing his tunes and we all had the charts beforehand. Now this stuff is complicated, but you could get very swiftly to the point where you couldn't continue because it had gone so far off the rails. Like even if one of us had gone so far off the rails, you couldn't continue. So it's interesting that like he's not announcing to the audience as a caveat that this is happening. It's almost like it's part of the show.
These are songs,
that it could...
aren't they, Jake?
Yeah, but the video...
I could imagine there being a bit of a category difference in terms of like, I don't know what songs you're talking about.
The clip you sent was pretty complicated. Like that piano part.
Yeah.
Was he the last 5 years
simple,
guy, Jason?
No, basically just Dan's a beast. And everyone can read there to a degree where you're not going like basically even if there's like material. Here's the thing. In the best possible way, without being self-aggrandizing.
Do it, Jake.
But because I do this a lot, the reading and the musical theatre thing, I might not be able to play what's in front of me, but I won't get lost.
Yeah.
And I won't. If I'm like doubtful, I will lay out a bit. You know what I mean? I basically won't. I won't create ugly mess. I'll either do something like that I'm confident with, or there's absolutely nothing.
So way more musical compromise.
Yeah, because like
not getting lost and making choices as opposed to
Dan is covering a lot of that stuff on piano, but it's weird when you have to do it. There's some like concentration that happens, and you might fluff like a bar or something, and you carry on.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is like you've been given the out by the scenario. So I remember doing that nightmare of a Nijo gig years and years and years ago where nobody knows what the scenario is. So they think you've been playing in that band for years and you turn up and you can't read it because it's too hard. But you have to kind of you can't just sit out. I mean, in reality, you probably could because all the horns are playing the same lines as you are, but you don't think that way. You're in the mindset where you feel like you've got to be competent and do the gig. But in this instance, it sounds like you've got an out. If you think, I can't play that, like
Yeah,
that's too complicated, I can't read that. You are okay to just lay back.
exactly. Because I almost sort of like, I was almost like self-authoring the uh the material I was doing, and because I didn't have an insecurity about my presence in that environment. Everyone was really happy with how things were sounding. There were things I was like, you kind of, I don't want to, you know, there are some songs where I'm obviously MVP because of what I have to do. For example, uh, I'll tell you this. Um, there's a tune called "Stop This Train" by John Mayer,
Yeah, I love it.
Yep.
and we were talking about it. It's got a really sort of specific technique, like a
Yep.
kind of flick and a
Yeah,
thing.
finger flick thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I learned how to do that, and I was playing it, and I was like, no, it has to be like a train that you sort of play. And I learned how to do it, and I got pretty good at it. I turn up to rehearsal, and it's like, oh no, it needs to be more like lullaby-ish and dreamlike. And you literally can't do it. So,
No.
but also you also can't really play the part without doing that little technique. So I was like playing that like so quietly that it was like it would be almost like me and Titus unamplified in a pin drop environment, like you were talking
Yeah.
about.
Hmm.
Um, and in those moments, like you're so vulnerable that like he would say, that's an intimate moment that you and I have to share with the audience. And it was he would expand on it for so long. So I might be playing this bit at the end for 2 or 3 minutes, just me and him, as almost like a loop. And to do that sort of consistently was like, sort of terrifying. But it
It's
would be
almost
like,
like
okay, everyone's like stepping up and giving as much as they can. And so because of that, it's like, yeah, if I throw you something and you're not like the best person for the job, no one's judging you for that because you're there doing you're secure and you're safe in what you're doing. Whereas that Nijo thing, you're almost like comparing yourself to someone who might come in and do it better.
it's like
Whereas like no, this is like my role. You know what I mean?
yeah, I mean that's one way of looking at it. I was thinking a second ago that it's like training to be in the musical Marines. Like he could never be traumatized by anything again. It's
It
almost
was
anti-PTSD training. It's
it was a bit
incredible.
like that. It was a bit like that. I did have one stressful day where there are a few things, and it was the sort of I felt like the demands on me were quite acute. But and I think I maybe let myself show that a bit too clearly. Um, and it was sort of like I felt a bit unprofessional about that. I feel like actually as a team, like I'm a human being, and like felt like I was a bit sort of vulnerable, but actually as a team, it was like I knew that was in my head, right? Like it wasn't anyone else thinking it in the band. That was just me, like almost going, what's the word? Um, really, what I meant to be doing there is creating confidence, and because I got in my own head a bit, it was like, oh, this is uh, it was just like a little thing, but it sort of created a little bit of an atmosphere because I was stressed about what I was having to do. And actually, it's like you just you have to, like you say, Marines. If you get stressed or freaked out, you don't want to look like you're going to sink the ship at any moment. It's like
Mm.
this. It's a really hard thing to explain, but it's literally been like 2 weeks of teamwork. Some of the music's been amazing. Some of the guests have been absolutely insane. Some of the most intense like musical experiences of my life. It's too much to actually talk about. And what's weird, just as a little quick aside, using the quad cortex on that gig
I was going to ask about this.
was strange because I'd set everything up in songs, and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, we're not doing that, any of that.
That's what I was going to ask. How the hell do you work
Welcome
from a
to my
tonal
world.
perspective there?
Yeah. So it was kind of a weird hybrid thing in the end, where I would have some things for certain songs that would have to be those patches, and then I had a Marshall palette, a Vox palette, a Fender palette, and a Roland jazz palette.
And an acoustic as well.
Yeah, the acoustic went through it. Acoustic sounded so good. I just put it. I found like a capture of like a preamp, and I just put that on it with some reverb and a bit of EQ. Because we ended up. I thought I could send it out like another line, but because of the limitations in the venue, we were just like, look, it just sounds fine if, and because it was so quick. Oh, we're doing this song now. Okay, it's like grab acoustic, plug it in, go. And we just put a bit of acoustic actually on a bit of EQ actually on just an acoustic channel rather than EQ the house. We just changed the EQ for the acoustic.
What were you reading from? An iPad or
iPad with a Bluetooth page turner.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, it sounded cool. The clip you sent sounded great. It was the band sounded epic, but it sounds like that was just one iteration of the band.
Yeah.
So that drummer was not like
That drummer was, yeah,
but
that
what?
was a guest drummer. Yeah.
So you'll find have there been guest guitar players as well?
No guest guitar players.
Can't replace the Doctor.
A couple of people have come up and played keys.
Hey,
We've had loads of incredible singers, and artists in general. Yeah, but that drummer actually got up. Can't remember the chap's name, but he was actually the original drummer for that show that we were playing, so he knew it like inside out. But he did. I think he did Dear Evan Hansen as well, like the
Okay.
Broadway. So he's like, serious player, and just the sort of amount of like listening and responding going on in sort of band terms was very intense, because we had to create something in a space but also be on in ears, so it was a lot of like one ear in, one ear out. And no, like, yeah, modelers are great, they're absolutely great, there's no way I could have used an amp, but one limitation there is that you really don't know how it's coming through the PA, and you can sort of trust like what they're doing, but I had to be sort of one ear in, one ear out. It was nuts.
So you had no wedge on stage. It was all in ears.
There was basically a little bit of we had the vocal coming back at us with wedges, but virtually nothing else in those wedges. I could make out my dynamic footprint, if you like, by gauging the room sound.
Yeah, that would take me a long time to get used to that scenario.
It wasn't, but the thing is, I'm so used to dealing with compromised scenarios like that. Like, I don't have a thing now where I'm like, oh, the sound is X. It's like it's head down and do it. I mean, like, even on the proms, I'm not going to say the sound I got through my ears on the proms was good. It was like a good mix, but it's still not like a kind of super musically satisfying thing. You can have the best in-ears in the world. It's absolutely crucial that you use them in those environments because of various reasons. But direct guitar sounds into in-ears is just but again, you just get like, you just kind of get battle ready with it, and you stop. I've seen enough clips of me playing with those sounds in instances where maybe other guitarists using amps on stage and go, actually, no, that sounds fucking great. So don't stress. Like, it sounds good out front. chill. Whatever it sounds like to you is just another thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's not your job, is it, to be
No.
making it sound good out front? You know, you're giving them something that sounds good as a direct source, and then it's somebody else's job to make it sound great. We had to do a play the guitar summit on a silent stage with wireless headphones, although we didn't have wireless headphones because of the inherent latency, obviously. So we were using the amps DI'd, and they're meant to do that. They sound good, and there's very little latency. But comparatively, so we jammed with Yannick Gwizdala, and we were all DI'd. And, you know, bass is more of a full range instrument, so you're used to hearing it through full range speakers.
Yeah.
So it sounds great through the DI.
Yeah, the bass
Everybody knows that bass sounds good DI'd, but
and
guitars just
powerful and
lose
fat and
so
low.
much.
Sounds like
Yeah, yeah. So, and like even if you've got a good chunk of delay, if you chordy up your tone with like smatterings of delay and reverb, it still doesn't like sit the same.
No.
And you know, we were, I'd say, 10 times less inspired on that day than on any of the other days we played. I just find the whole thing depressed. I get it. I get why it's important and so on and so forth. But man, I wouldn't want to live my life that way.
No, it's unfortunately it's the reality of my job.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's like I wouldn't choose to do it that way. But you know, there were times where I could take both in ears out, like when we're doing the that Stevie Wonder tune, Contusion. Like I could take both my ears out because there was kind of enough of me lead in front of I could, without even being in the monitors, I could hear it in the front of house well enough. And actually having that slightly distant separation gives you a lot of confidence. You know, rather than hearing it so like ice pick immediate.
Yeah, it sucks. What's that you got there, sir? Is that a Koroveckian?
That was lovely.
It's a House Ugadal.
That's a House Ugadal.
Just realized it wasn't open.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I found an Ugadal in my cupboard the other day. I didn't know it was there.
Well, my mom, I got one for my birthday. This is about a year. Well, it's over a year ago. I think my parents got me this for birthday, and I just hadn't opened it yet because there was already one in the cupboard. So,
Nice.
Jake, on the subject of that gig, there is definitely
ASMR.
there's definitely with the way you're describing it, it sounds like it'd be very easy to take it one of two ways. There's the way you took it, which is the very professional, okay, how we're doing this kind of way. But I think for someone else, it'd be like, oh God, I'm working with another Nightmare Singer kind of scenario that just keeps rug pulling every other song.
So,
but was it done in a nice way?
Maybe I didn't tie up one of these ends just because of the way it went. I basically wouldn't have felt so inclined to be as generous with what I was able to bring to the table if I wasn't seeing them being generous to other people in the way that they were like he was hanging around after some of these shows and spending a lot of time with, you know, people who might be just starting their singing career and just encouraging them and getting them to do something, or just like giving a little sort of mini workshop on how to do this like one song. And you could see like what it meant to people. And so I was like, I kind of see actually what this is like, what this is offering the space, you know, what's it. And so it was just I just felt like kind of swept up in more like of a culture of music making rather than, hey, you're my puppet.
Yeah.
And I felt like an active contributor to art making rather than some
hired gun to be bitched about.
Yeah, precisely.
Nice. It sounds almost more hype. It sounds like probably one of the most difficult gigs on the list. Because obviously all the theatre stuff is difficult, but there's like setup costs with that, and then once it's set up, you're sort of in there, aren't you? But that kind of thing just sounds like high level roulette. You know what I mean?
You're right, but that was thrilling, and the risks were accepted by all with grace rather than, well, you should
you better not fuck up, you know.
Yeah, exactly. And weirdly, there was like almost fuck up free. Just because I was like on, I was just wired properly. You know, like it's kind of it sounds like I'm bigging myself up there, but what I mean is just by the environment that was created, I was just like, I'm focused. I'm doing this. I have to do this now. Um, and yeah, thankfully didn't crumple. I found honestly, genuinely, it sound like so soppy, but I found myself like genuinely like shedding a few tears at several moments, several impromptu moments of like,
I'd have been fairly emotional after that gig, I think.
but just brilliance. Uh, you just get swept up
Tears,
in the sort
tears of
of
fear.
level of expression going on. Yeah, if I were to show you the iPad, like the amount of charts in there, you'd be like, that's about that's it. Basically, we ended up playing like 3 gigs worth of material, I'd say, rather than 1 gig over the course. Yeah, there'd be some like other relatively successful, famous person come and do a thing, um, and it'd be like, oh, we're doing that, and we didn't know they were coming. They're coming. We're doing this song. You got that? Can we leave that with you? Cool. And it wouldn't be like go in learn it. It's like we're gonna find a chart and we're gonna give you a chart.
Did you have
You
to
got
do any on the fly like mad transposing, or did the
yes,
charts get?
yeah, we did.
Did you log into Ultimate Guitar at any point?
No, none of that, none of that. Because we all had to be reading off. We all had to be reading off the
Boot up
same.
Songster?
We're experienced enough to know that we have to be reading off the same thing.
Literally the same hymn sheet.
So it could be like a
You're
piano.
not, you're not YouTubing guitar tutorial for X.
iReal Pro.
So there was one hilarious moment. I will name names because it's funny. But there's two things. So we were lucky enough to have Laura and Vula come and play some stuff. And one of the songs, she was like, "Oh, and this bit, like, Jake, just do whatever you like." And I just did nothing because it was just insane. And then and the audience really loved it, and she ended up doing another song, and she was like, "Band, you know what to do. You might not know it yet, but you know what to do." And then started playing the song, and then we're just finding a little bit of space. It was like it almost felt like a worship gig where the pastor goes a bit off script and starts talking, and like the band are sort of doing just
falling
stuff.
in.
Yeah, just falling into like these little sort of areas. But it was quite like
What within a particular sort of specific harmonic area, or were there changes involved as well?
there were changes, but there were changes I could hear. It wasn't anything like nuts,
Okay.
you know. Yeah, on that one, it was kind of funny. Like on that one, the drummer knew the song, like knew how it went. I didn't know the song. Obviously, everything's being led by the artist singing their song as well as they can, and so Dan's the MD then goes down onto the Nord he was using, like starts like moving patches around, just finding, he knows what sound to go to. I know what sounds to get, and then we're just kind of
Were you
adding.
doing this on the fly while she's singing?
Yep, when we've never heard the song.
Can the audience not hear you like tweaking things?
No.
How are you? I don't understand how you're doing this.
No, I told you I was on a kind of. I was just on whatever patch I was on before. Dan knows how to get a sound that'll fit. He just goes to what he knows to.
Okay, so he's not like auditioning patch.
Yeah, you're all looking like you're all sat in the back sending faxes.
Come on,
That's bizarre.
DJ,
like
DJ.
Like Ross Geller.
With the dog
Yeah.
barks.
Oh yeah.
Orchestral hit too.
Yeah. Yeah, that was like that was a fun thing. It was funny because the bass player who didn't know the song was good enough as a musician to shut the fuck up and not do anything, because he knows that if he goes for something that's not actually it screws everything up. So it was like that is like almost like the admirable discretion to not act in those environments was kind of, it wasn't a jam. It was like trying to make music, and sometimes you just if you're going to harsh the mellow, do nothing.
If you're not going to play anything nice, don't play anything at all.
There you go. But anyway, I've bent your ears about that for far too long now, I think.
I like hearing it, man. It sounds like proper grown-up musicianship. You know what I mean? It's like kind of old,
it's like the ultimate,
as close as like old school. You know, like people talk about playing on. This is gonna sound proper 70s, but like things like variety shows where you just turn up, and then there's all these acts that are just coming on. And it's like, here's what we're playing, here's what we're playing, here's what we're playing. Oh no, get rid of those bars. Like, you know.
I will say that if you've got a pianist who's like got amazing ears and a brilliant way of playing, and can read almost anything, you have got a big safety net there. Especially if he can say, if you go, okay, no, they've just fucked up. We're going to go back to H.
Right, yeah.
Rehearsal mark H, guys. Rehearsal mark H. Cool. Or yeah, we're just going to go around these couple of bars. Actually, push the tempo a little bit. It's like proper. He was
like air traffic control.
Yeah, he's definitely man of the match. I don't know how he does it really.
Man, what a journey that is. That's a really interesting thing to hear about. Very cool.
Nuts. It was nuts. There's a lot. I've kind of there will be clips. There'll be a lot of clips.
Cool.
Again, so some of it was more polished than other bits, but I think there's no like real stinkers. There were no stinkers.
Wow. Interessant. So
Yeah.
Dan, you had a interesting gig, didn't you?
Yeah, well, so I did a jazz guitar. This is what it was billed as. I did a jazz guitar trio under my name. So the little program for Stranraer Jazz Festival, whatever it is, said like, it actually said Daniel Smith Trio. And I was like, who put this in? My mum. Nobody calls me Daniel. But yeah, it was me and Pete from Swing Band. But he's like,
it's not a trio, that, mate. Sorry to.
We got other people up. There was supposed to be someone else initially. Like, we just got drafted in to do some like filler stuff because some people dropped out or whatever. So me and him did that, but then him and the Pete and the pianist, violinist in the band did like a duo set, and he was playing like cocktail drums, which is like this. It just looks like a big like Carlsberg can.
I bet the real Daniel Smith would have known how many's in a trio.
Well, we got people up. It was a trio initially, but the guy couldn't do it. And then, so in order to not like turn up and like be like, I thought there was going to be three of you. It was mainly me and Pete, and then Sienna got up and did a tune. Gaynor got up and played a tune. But it was good, man. Like Pete he's not like, he's a really interesting musician in that he's not sort of he's not very choppy, but he's like like Tom Jones. You could just say any song to Tom Jones and he'd just have a go, or he would just know it. He's just like this weird walking jukebox of a man.
Back in the day, you'd have called him a human iPod, but since that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, I just dropped the word jukebox, so you know, for everyone listening, that's like an iPod, but it was in like a bar, and it was really big, and you had to put money in it. Anyway, yeah, he was on guitar, kind of just sort of backing it up, but he could also just come in and like sing these tunes whenever he feels like it as well. So it's that thing of like, there wasn't any rehearsals really. I kind of went around to his and we just sort of picked a few tunes and kind of had a bit of a thing, but that was like once for an hour. So I'm just going up, and it was this very polite, you're talking about pin drop. That's almost the rules at these things. It's like everyone just sits there. Nobody says anything. If you talk, you get a dirty look. So it's just this silent room of all these people. And it's so like, I don't know, man. It's just a bit kind of like, oh.
Especially when you're playing
solo
guitar.
They're really listening. Do you know what I mean? So it was mainly standards, you know, it was a bit like, to be fair, we scanned them a little bit. You know, there's like that Sex Pistols album where they just re-released an album with like the same songs as the previous one or something. Isn't that a thing?
No idea.
I might be off on this. I don't know if it's like the Great Rock and Roll Swindle or something. I think they released an album with a different name, but it just had the same songs on it as the previous one to make money. That might not be true. Don't sue me, John. We did a couple of tunes that had not the same chord changes, but close. So like, If I Had You, it's got that 1 1 7 4 4 minor thing to start, and then it kind of does something else. Then we did this sort of New Orleansy tune that went 1 1 7 4 4 minor, but then went somewhere else. Both in the same key. But it was good, man. Like, it was really nice to. I put a little video up of some playing, and I was like, it was stressful because I'm like, we've got to fill an hour here, and it's like, it's just me and Pete, and I don't really know what's going on. You know what I mean? But it's just like, right, we're just going to play some music, you know, chop chop sort of thing. Which in a way was probably better, because the tunes that went less well, it was all still fine. Well, there's no like car crash endings. It was like fine because everyone's played with each other so much that it's like, you just know, it's like, right, we're doing this now, or someone would shout it out. But the ones that went less well were the ones that had some sort of mini effort at this is what's going to happen, as opposed to the ones where we're just starting and then we see what's going to happen. Because if you have a plan, you try to follow that plan, and it's very easy to balls it up. Whereas if there's no plan, people are just reacting and looking at each other and like, do you see what I mean?
Yeah, not second guessing what the plan was that's not super well oiled, and then you're not.
You try to remember the plan instead of like reacting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you're not thinking about and listening to the music that's happening. Yeah.
No, but you know, long story short, I think it's the first time I gigged at Ibanez Jazz Box. I don't think I've gigged it before, and it was so nice, man. Because like I say, no drummer. There's like a bit of a pop that you can get out of a guitar like that if you just dig it a little bit, and you get this kind of like woody sort of pop that's not just the usual kind of mellow jazz thing. I don't know, there's the only way I can explain it.
How did you get on with feedback?
0. No feedback.
Well,
I was just
how loud were you? You weren't insanely loud, were you?
Loud enough, kind of in the room, but not like, you know, not mega loud. But
yeah, but old jazz boxes are, you can't get very loud with them.
But I mean, I was sat. The amp was like kind of behind me. It was like I was in, you know, I don't know. There was like a bit of distance between me and the amp, and I was sat in between the actual guitar and the amp because it was like sort of over there. But it was nice. So yeah, long story short, first time I gigged out, and even though it was stressful, I did enjoy it, and I actually felt like it was quite an expressive thing on my part, because I haven't really had an opportunity to kind of play in that way on a, you know, in a gig sort of environment where people are listening. As much as it is a bit of a sort of, you know, old person, it wasn't this one was. There's another one that we do that's quite like, it's a lot of old trad sort of stuff, but this was like quite a good mix. But people are listening. It's a bit different than like, you know, if you go and do like a guitar duo in the corner of a restaurant or whatever, you kind of, it's a bit backgroundy. But this is people are just sat there in rows just looking at you.
Kind of nice to have to make people listen to like.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me of I was in a restaurant in Germany, and there was a guy. We were there for probably 4 hours, and this piano player, had been there for probably 2 before we turned up, and nobody was listening. He was proper background music, but he was quite good, and he just went through. You could tell he was just like halfway through a song, and then he thought, "Oh, let's try. I heard Taylor Swift last week. Let's try that now." And he'd just segue his way into a Taylor Swift song, and like, just the repertoire this guy had was insane. And because no one was listening, he didn't care. He just did not care. He just kept moving between the most random things. I think he segued from some Mariah Carey into Smile, which I thought was incredible. Really, really amazingly well done. And then he swanned off at the end, and he was like, I think he got 50 quid and a meal, and that was it. But he must have played for about 5-6 hours. Unbelievable.
But yeah, it was good, and like watching the videos back, I was like, oh, I actually really like the sound of that, and it was it's like a good thing for me, because if you don't play in that way, you sort of forget that you can sort of do it a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's been a
So
while
it was
since I
kind of
did
it's a nice sort of like little confidence boost. And I do want to kind of do more of it. But yeah,
More duo stuff.
yeah, because I think because it you do have that range. It does work so many. It works so many muscles, and you do have the thing to like because it's another guitar player as well, and you do sort of speak the same language. If you go for a thing or you do something, like I think there was one moment where I think I accidentally muted a note, so I was like, right, this entire chorus is going to be like palm muted, just going to play around with that as a thing, and like Pete is also a guitar player, obviously, so he kind of knows what's going on, and he's like, you can take it into the same sort of directions because you speak. You know what I mean? It might be different if you play with another, like another sort of instrumentalist, but there is that weird thing of like, oh, he's going for that. You know what I mean? And it's like
We have some great duo videos from about 10 years ago, Dan.
Yeah, we do
on YouTube.
You know what? I looked
They're pretty good.
I looked up. I think I was looking to check one of these live streams went up, and I typed in the Guitar Hour podcast, and a video came up of like me and you doing it like 9 years ago, and I look thin. I look like I don't know. I just look.
I've got hair.
Yeah, I look like the sort of dad from Modern Family. You know, the sort of vampiric looking one. I look like that. I look like the vampire Muppet is what I look like. But,
that's before
but
my
yeah, I
daughter
want
was
to do.
born.
I feel like it's been a nice confidence boost to sort of see some of the videos back and be like, actually quite. The sound that was coming out is kind of what was in my head, and in the moment, I felt quite expressive and things were working, and it was like, it was good. It was good. Like I say, you
Still not done the Dull Standards Club, have we?
Dull Men's Standards Club. Yeah, we need to do that, and then
we're supposed to be
I
doing
need to get on these guitar, the swing video game stuff. We did do the Mario one. It was but because again that one was like supposed to be arranged, and we didn't really get a chance to go through it before. It was fine, but it wasn't as slick as I would have liked it to have been. But it does work as a thing.
I had a very silly time in Nashville with Ben Ella on stage playing Louie Louie.
Love Ben Ella.
It was great. Me and Ben Ella on stage, and I ended up like Louie Louie's the most simplest harmonic thing you can possibly get.
Is that the one you can play on an old phone? Yeah.
So I ended up quoting video game theme tunes in my solo because we were just like, it's like Ben Ella, come on. So I got a few Zelda theme tunes, some Mario theme tunes in there. And we ended the whole thing with Dugga Dugga Dugga, which was just. I even got the Ghostbusters theme tune in there. It went proper 80s for some reason. I don't know why. Nice. It was fun.
80s kid.
But just one thing about that gig is I thought, I'll just throw a solo thing in. You know, I've got this like monastery arrangement of a Eddie Lang tune, which is like this kind of solo guitar thing, but it's quite picked. I don't know when it's from. It's like 1920s maybe or something. I don't know. But the original is like ferocious if you actually listen to it. And I'm like, people were doing this? Like, it's like proper, it's like picked and it's like picked. It's speedy, but it's not like, there's no tickling going on. This guy's like, hammering it. So this kind of waltz thing that sounds quite nice. And I was like, I'll do that. And then I played it a couple of times in the van because Pete's acoustic was in the van. I was like, I'll just play it in the back seat on the way because it was a bit of a distance. And it was fine. Got, sounded great in the van. I was like, I'm looking forward to this. And then in the room, for whatever reason, just a link between one bit and the next just completely left my head. And I just got stuck on this A7 chord. Part of me's still there. It's in that room with that A7 chord.
Waiting to be resolved.
Unresolved.
I left part of myself on a unfinished cadence in Stranraer. But I think the thing is, I didn't stop, so there wasn't silence, but I might have said, bear with me, to a room full of very quiet people.
Amazing.
Well, I'm like, ding, 5. But I finished it and it was fine, but it didn't go as well as I would have liked. But But I think I did it like the third tune in because I was like, oh, let's just get this one out of the way. But it was nice. There's definitely some things to take from it and to think about as myself as a player, and just an enjoyable. I wasn't playing for me in a way. Like I wasn't just doing loads of mad shit, but like I got to sort of play as me, which is quite nice because the swing band, the solos are like
Cool.
It's one time round, and it is quite loud. So there's no time to you can't do like a setup. You can't set up there's no you can't set up a narrative and then set up an idea for a chorus and then go somewhere else. It's like you've got 16 bars and you've got to be, it's got to be of a certain level. So it's fine. It was really nice to be able to stretch out a bit.
I think there's a nice kind of bow to all of these three kind of things, which is I feel like you get to a maturity level with your playing where you don't get stressed out about everything being perfect anymore, and you can still come off a gig and everything's not gone 100% the way you expected it to, and still have a really great time and enjoy yourself, and not come away feeling bad about everything at the end. You just accept that stuff doesn't always go 100% right, and even if it doesn't, you can still have a really great time. And if you enjoyed the quality of the experience and the sound and everything else, and in your case, Jake, the challenge and then the reward of getting through that and still having a great experience, it's that's for me. I don't get stressed out anymore if a gig's not perfect.
Yeah, and also knowing that actually it is completely unreasonable.
Yeah.
From my own experience, to expect someone to be infallible in that environment.
Well, in the environment you were in, absolutely.
But in most cases as well, it's just everyone's human.
Well, yeah, watch anything where there's any sort of level of improvisation at all. Whether it just be a solo section or whether it be with your comping, any level of expressive improvised kind of stuff. So what I mean is it's not like a set part that you play the same every time. You're rolling the dice pretty much, and your batting average is better the more you do it. But
well, that's it. Also, having a batting average in the first place means that when you have a bad gig, you're just it's
yeah.
I had a bad gig, didn't I? Yeah, I do enough of them that I know where I'm at with it.
Yeah. I tell students just think of it like a Guitar Hero level. I think how many notes are in a song. If you got 380 right out of 400, if you scored 380 shots out of 400 shots, you'd be absolutely world class at football. You know what I mean? Look at it that way. Make yourself feel well better.
That's what I mean about the maturity level, though, because you end up at that place basically as you get older, and you don't.
Look how much we've grown,
so
gentlemen.
Yeah, you have to you kind of have to earn that place by. Do you know what? It was Tommy Emerton told me. It was about kind of playing, sort of losing the fear element of playing. And he said basically you kind of have to have made all the mistakes and survived them to not fear them anymore. Which is which is kind of cool, as an idea that didn't hurt me, didn't hurt me, actually didn't, people understand. People aren't assholes about these things generally. It's most often your own self-critic, and an unreasonable sense of what is par, what's actually, what, because you never see other people do your job in a way, so you always just kind of go, well, I bet they would do better. But the job is so, again, the job is so much more than playing. Often it's working with artists. It's do you have a demeanor that makes the artist feel like they can work? And like I said, that one little blip where I had a little bit of a wobble, I was like, okay, I don't think I'm doing my job very well here. Not because I was playing badly, just because I myself felt a bit flustered. You know. Anyway, it's a whole thing. We definitely need to talk about our big news story.
Oh yeah.
Well, I was going to suggest that you've tied that up so well, we should, I don't know, save that till next time. I think that's quite
Yeah, I was going to say I can't stick around for much longer, but yeah,
No,
Fair
I
enough.
think
Well,
that's...
well,
gonna have to do another one.
need
RIP
to
our techniques, and we'll talk about maybe
certainly long overdue. A bit of you know self-reflection on everyone's part. So it's nice to hear all your war stories, gentlemen.
fresh from battle.
And yeah, and we'll dive in soon with some news stories next time, I guess. But,
Yeah, man.
Exactly.
cool.
All right, chaps. I am off. Thanks for watching, people.
Nice to see you,
Yeah.
Thomas.
Nice one.
Nice